So is this something Republicans on Capitol Hill can actually support? Joining me now are two GOP congressmen, Devin Nunes and Lee Zeldin. Congressman Nunes, let's start with you. That is a gargantuan price tag. And Congressman, I keep thinking about where this problem originated in China. And everybody who's I've talked to today is getting more and more infuriated that our economy is being hobbled and Americans are being completely upended in their lives because of what China did. But now we have to spend our way out of this? Is that where we are?
Well, so this is the issue, right? And I heard you talking to Dr. Fossey. You're asking very important questions about where do we stand with the status and what data do we have of the people in the United States that are getting sick. Because in China, we can't trust any of the numbers. We still don't have good data as to, who's getting sick, what are the symptoms of the people that are getting sick, and what are the best ways to treat it. And that's the travesty here. So as we move forward, the question in the macro sense, if we keep people laid off, okay, which we're now kind of right at the beginning of this, and really it's going to depend, Laura, on whether this goes 2 weeks, a month, or 2 months. And I think that's how you have to look at it. And then how do you make sure that people have enough to provide for their families for their basic necessities? And that's what we have to look at.
Yeah. Congressman Zeldin, there's been a lot of back and forth over this deal with the payroll tax. And there were a lot of conservatives pushing payroll tax cuts. And they just decided they aren't going to go to that. The money has to go right to people really fast. What's your take on that?
Well, for one, I look at when you give someone $1,000 back in a situation like this, you're giving people money that essentially they paid to the federal government. So it's one thing to be engaging in wasteful spending, where you're starting to see subsidies and money spent on pork and pet projects. Now, I'm concerned about our nation's debt. I'm concerned about our nation's deficit. I also want to see that all of the Americans from coast to coast who are going to be going through tough times, not really of their own doing, of the coronavirus hitting our country, of government engaging in policies that might be closing down restaurants and schools and bars.
Yeah, we know that's all happening. We know that's happening, Congressman. We know that's happening, and it's horrific. But the question is the medicine for the economic collapse. There's concern that the medicine is going to kill the economy or kill the patient, meaning, that's going to do more. I'm just throwing that out because I think we have to ask these questions now and actually know what's in these bills before they're passed through Congress. And a lot of people that I'm talking to on Capitol said they haven't even been able to read the legislation. There is no legislation yet, obviously, because 6 people are writing it behind closed doors. The devil's in the details, correct?
Correct. It's going to be important to see what that product looks like. We all should have the opportunity to read the bill. I'm not expecting that the final product is going to be one that's perfection. I don't know if I could set the standard on that. You and I have been watching this for too long, and Congressman Nunes as well. But we don't want to see wasteful spending, and we can't afford to misfire on this bullet. If you're going to spend $1 trillion, if that's going to be the cost of this bill,
well, that's just the beginning,
and it doesn't work. Yeah, and it doesn't work. You don't just have like another $1 trillion. You can't keep going back to that.
No, I mean, we can't. Moreover, Congressman Nunes, every time China plays loosey-goosey with a pathogen, we cannot shut down our economy. We can't allow this to keep happening to the American people. I'm talking to families out in Gaithersburg, Maryland today. They don't know what they're going to do. I mean, and these are good, strong people. But they work in the restaurant business, and they're like, this is painful. We're not going to survive this. If this goes on for several weeks to June or May.
Yeah,
these businesses aren't going to be able to survive.
Yeah, one of the things that I've been harping on the last few days since I've been back here on the ground in California is the hoarding and the lines at the grocery stores. And up until today, we still had a lot of restaurants that were open, and they could have met some of those needs for people that needed food. Now, just on my way here to do this show, Laura, most of the restaurants are shuttered in my area. And so, this is not a good situation at all, and people are going to be hurt. And that's why I go back to what I said. Everything really rests on where are we at with the data of the people that are getting sick, and 2 weeks, I think we can handle. But if it starts to go longer than that, and we don't have good data and analysis of the people that are getting sick on how to treat them, then we're going to have bigger problems.
Do either of you think that the country's going to be able to stay behind closed doors until May 15th, as the Emmanuel, Dr. Ezekiel Emmanuel was saying, that this could be May 15th or June 1st? I mean, that's just not going to work. That's not going. That can't be our answer to this. Yeah,
I'm very optimistic. I think there's a good chance that we could get through this in the next couple of weeks, and for sure by Easter, because we will have a handle on who's getting sick and how to treat them. And that's what I'm really focused on now.
All right, Congressman Zeldin,
I think as far as...
Hold on. I got to get to this, because I mentioned this in my angle. I got to get Zeldin in on this. So China, where this whole thing started, is now kicking our journalists out of their country. And when they're not doing that, they're actually saying that we created this virus. Now, here's what the government said today. In response to the U.S. slashing the staff size of Chinese media outlets in the U.S., which is expulsion in all but name, China demands that journalists of U.S. citizenship working with the Times, the Journal, and the Washington Post hand back their press cards within 10 calendar days. They'll not be allowed to continue working as journalists in the People's Republic of China. So they're saying, well, you started it, basically, Congressman Zeldin. And my question is, when will the media finally stop parroting Beijing's propaganda after this happens to their own journalists?
Yeah, they need to do it right now. I mean, this is propaganda. It is a lie. My background is in the military. I still serve as a lieutenant colonel in the Army Reserve. It is offensive to see the Chinese government, this Communist Party, blaming the United States military for bringing it to China. Obviously, that's not true. Comparing the people who are essentially operatives of the Communist Party of China who serve here in the U.S., some had to leave, to journalists from some of these American media outlets, and that's apples and oranges. And you don't see, it's two different value systems. You don't see the United States government removing people from the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal and these others. The president isn't. You still have a seat inside the press room for Jim Acosta and some of these other personalities who are there and harassing and aren't honestly reporting in many situations.
That's not China.
It's two different value systems.
Well, I think back to Nunes' comment, you can't really trust what China is saying about how this virus is transmitted or the treatment. I trust maybe France and Spain and all countries that are doing real research, and U.S. researchers that are doing great research about treatments and antivirals that seem like they're amazing. And I hope they get fast-tracked. But trusting China in all this, every time the president says, "Oh, the great work of China," I'm like, my head blows off my shoulders. But we rely on them for antibiotics, so we can't offend China. But this whole situation with China has got to be re-examined, and if we shouldn't be shuttering in place. China should be shuttering in place tonight. Okay, so that's my word, gentlemen. That's enough of my rant. Thanks so much for coming on. We appreciate it.